Tim, welcome to our channel and thanks for logging on. Well, today we have a much requested comparison of watches that share a very similar spirit, part of the ever-expanding class of 50s and 60s inspired retro dive watches. These are two references that are among the leading values and leading names in their class. From 2007 to the present, we have the Longines Heritage Collection Legend Diver on the left, 42mm in stainless steel, and we have the 2012 to 2015 Tudor Heritage Black Bay with ETA caliber on the right, 41mm in stainless steel. These watches, of course, try to combine modern fit, finish, and functionality, that is, the ability to actually dive with your dive watch, with the look and nostalgic impact of a true vintage reference. So we're going to tell the tale of each one. We're going to do a weigh-in and a loom shot. Now, obviously, you can see I'm set up for the first of those, a weigh-in. Now, there's not going to be much surprise here. The Tudor with a full bracelet is going to run away with it, but nevertheless you may be interested in knowing because the Tudor is also available with a strap. So, first things first. You can see the Longines weighs in at 90 grams. Now we're going to clear our table and bring in the Heritage Black Bay on a full bracelet. And as you can see, a robust 164 grams. So not only does a bracelet change the look of a watch, but it makes a very substantial difference in the feel of a watch on your wrist. Quite simply, it's hard to forget when you're wearing 70 plus grams more timepiece. Now it's also important to note that the Tudor is perhaps the more eclectic of the two in terms of style and inspiration. Unlike the Longines, it's not a reference to a specific watch or model, or even, I should say, a specific code designation like 7922, the first Tudor Submariner of 1954, or the 7924, the first of the big crowns, or even the 7016 Snowflake, the first of the no-date snowflake dials in 1968. This watch embodies elements of all of those. It's sort of a compound or anthology timepiece, basically best of in a single watch. Now, the nice thing about the watch is that it does wear like a modern Rolex, larger in fact, 41mm across the round of the case. The watch also has a fairly hefty feel, 13mm thick. You can see, unlike the vintage references, very little of that is sapphire, so it has a deep and substantial case. Now, from lug to lug, the watch measures 49.5mm, so it's large across the wrist, but not overpowering. This is wearable on a wrist down to, in my estimation, about 14.5 centimeters in circumference. Now, the important thing to note about both of these watches is that, from a mechanical standpoint, they're really the same at heart, which is to say, each one packs an ETA 2824 2 caliber, albeit with the date complication intact on the Longines, this not being a historically correct rendition of the original, rather an accommodation made for the functionality of modern watch collectors, the usability on a daily basis that you frankly just don't get with a vintage dive watch. Now, it's important to note that in terms of depth rating, the Tudor possesses a rather 60s-esque 200-meter dive depth, whereas the Longines is actually substantially more resilient than its historical antecedent. The original Longines super compressor case diver of the 60s had a 200-meter rating. This one, with screw-down crowns and a solid caseback, boasts a 300-meter rating. Now, in terms of outright functionality, you're going to find that because of the calibers, they're exactly the same. 38-hour power reserve, efficient bidirectional winding, of course, about a 38 to 40-hour power reserve given the 2824 architecture, 25 joules in each case. The Longines has a quick set and a hacking function, the Tudor just the hacking function. Both of them are legible in low or no light conditions, but the Tudor has a substantial advantage in terms of luminescence, and you'll see that soon. What the Longines has, however, is the convenience of a date and the mechanical fascination of an internal bidirectional rotating bezel, much like the original. Now, the Longines, we're going to move the Tudor aside for a moment, the Longines is the watch of the two that is truer to history. It's important to note that this one is very similar to the original super compressor-cased Longines Diver of the 1960s. Now, the case was used by many manufacturers from Bulova to Hamilton to Jaeger-LeCoultre, Vulcain, IWC, of course Longines, and perhaps 17 to 20 in total used this case profile, but the Longines is one of the best regarded, and this watch hews very closely to the original. The principal differences are, of course, 100 meters of extra diving depth, the use of a jump date on a watch that previously did not have one. Of course, the watch features a sapphire rather than acrylic. Both of these watches feature sapphire, not a more historically correct acrylic, and trust me, it's to your advantage as it's nearly scratch-proof. It's also important to note that the Longines features a little bit of a chromatic distinction. The original rotating bezel was actually silvered, whereas this one features a sort of ecru coloration that matches the dial and the contrasting stitch of the textile strap a little better. So this watch, very much a specific reference in mind when rendering the modern version. Longines did a great job on this watch, and it stood the test of time. 2007 was a long time ago, and this watch has hardly changed since its debut. Don't mess with success. Now, it's important to note that both of these watches do meet the ISO standard for a modern dive watch. That is, each one of these, and I'm going to improve the focal plane. There we go. Each one of these is what you would call a dive watch by the ISO standard established in 1996. It's 6425. You can dive with either of these watches, but I think after you see the lume shot, and I'm going to fire up my handy-dandy 400 lumen LED, after you see the lume shot, I think it's going to be pretty self-evident which one of the two is more impressive as a pure utility piece. The lights are coming down. And as you can see, the lume does not lie. The Tudor on every level more legible. Hands, indices, and bezel. This is a true diver in every sense. Now, you're not going to use a classical dive watch as your primary diving safety timer. You're going to use it as a backup, but it's nice to know that when you do need your watch in the dark, even if you are a landlubber or a desk diver, the Tudor is going to deliver. Now, what the Tudor can't deliver is the same elegance as the Longines. The Longines features a case profile that's just more delicate. It's drawn outward in dramatic fashion, 53 millimeters from lug to lug. This is a substantial case. The watch may look pared down and slim, and it is. It also wears well with formal attire, as the strap is perhaps just a little bit less utilitarian, just a little bit less workmanlike than the bracelet of the Tudor. So this is definitely the watch that wins on the basis of elegance when the lights are on. Regardless of which neo-retro champion you choose, these are both fantastic values and leaders in their class. Neither one of these watches will disappoint, and I think you'll find when you compare them side by side, you truly get the greatest measure of the value of each. And of course, you can see and you can purchase each of these vintage-inspired dive watches on our website.